place called Weedley Springs. It's in the Yorkshire Wolds, which is in East Yorkshire. Top of a hill, looking down into a small valley. By way of drawing, I've not really done that much because I don't really know what to draw. There's just a few hills that seem to come down and into a point where in fact it is a bit shaded, so I will just mark where the shade is now. And there's no point just painting in the trees because I don't really know how I'm going to do the trees yet. It's the massive trees that I'm trying to paint here, so by way of drawing there's not really much to say. All I've done is put a horizon line in, the general direction of the sweep of the hills, the dark bank of trees in the distance there. The camera won't show up the distant landscape, which has a few wind turbines that the light's striking occasionally, which I may put in. A featureless sky. Oh, a few wispy clouds in the distance, which again I might put in. I don't know. I'm using titanium whites, cadmium yellow lights, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, phthalo green. I'm using dioxazine purple. I'm giving it a try. Many people have said don't bother using it because you can mix that purple colour from alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue, but I'm gonna try it. Ultramarine blue, of course, burnt sienna and burnt umber. I think dioxazine purple could work. I mean, you're never going to use it as a standalone colour. It's just for mixing, really, putting into mixes. I'm just thinking it might make, when I want to bring colours down, rather than using burnt umber, it might do it in a way that makes it less muddy looking at the end of it. That's what I'm thinking, but that might be a load of nonsense. We'll see. It remains to be seen. I can put this up a little bit, I think. The truth is, I've really turned up, and yeah, it looks nice to the eye. I don't know whether it's something that'd look good in a painting at all. So just throw myself into the deep end and see what happens. My mediums, I used to use, or I still do to a large extent. I used to use linseed oil and the specially designed thinner by Winsor & Newton. It's a combination of the two that I used, but I've still got some of that artisan thinner in there, but I've really topped it up with the majority water. It's probably something like 80% water. Just experimenting with water. They say you're not supposed to use it really in painting, but it seems to make it flow better. I think it does what terps does for traditional oil paints. What I did find in my experiments was, though, that when the water dried out, it seemed to take the colour with it. I know it won't do that. The pigment can't evaporate, but it's how it looked. But still, I think, because I'm really interested in just scrubbing in those first layers anyway, I think it might be the way to go with water rather than the thinner. The thinner seemed to make it really sticky. I think I'll use a bigger brush. It's not going to do a good job. I'm also using, instead of linseed oil, I'm using, well, it technically is linseed oil, I'm using artisan, not painter's medium, which is stand oil, with, I think it has some resin in it to increase flow. I found that a mixture of these two, the 80% water and 20% artisan thinner, plus this painter's medium, it's quite good. With the paint, it leaves the paint in a really workable condition, I think, and that with an abundance of paint in your mix, it gets it across the panel quite easily, which I'm not really proving at the minute, but that's mainly because I don't have the large amount of paint. Well, let's just put quite a bit of water in and see how far it goes. You're not supposed to use a tiny touch. It does get across quite easily, but you can see it's thinned it out a lot. That suits how I want to paint. I want to start painting quite thin at the beginning, so I can see where I'm going with it. I used to just pile it on. Sometimes when you do go thick, it looks really good. I think your colours look less muddy as well when you go thick, for whatever reason. But because I'm not a massively experienced painter, I found that when things weren't looking right, it really did hinder the placement of new paint. Yes, of course you can wipe it off, which is something I always forget. I think the way forward for me would be to do what I'm doing now, and I think, and just keep it thin, and then reassess it when that's settled down. I'm using a panel, an MDF panel. It's 9x12, and it's not primed. It's just got quite a thick layer of PVA glue on it. I initially thought I had a problem. I was doing that for a point. I was using it like that, but then I stopped doing it because I thought it was making it. It was still keeping the panel porous. It wasn't doing a full coverage, even though I did apply the glue like varnish by keeping the panel at an angle to the light, so you could see where the glue was going and where it wasn't because of the light reflection. I was convinced I had it all right, but then when I started painting on one occasion, I could see that the paint it all looked mottled, and I realised it's because the glue was just forming in blobs. Long after I'd applied it, it was then forming in blobs and just setting in blobs and leaving patches where glue, well, although I put it down originally, didn't exist anymore. It seemed to just move itself. So what I do now is I don't let it fully dry. I let it half dry and then go over it with a brush, and it unblobs it. That's not a word, but it's pretty true to what it does. Okay, so that's a rough approximation of the sky. Again, it's too thin. It is too thin, but I know that I'm not going to have an issue painting over that. And I'd like to move on as well. I don't want to spend too long on one particular area. I'm going to try deoxazine purple. I want to do the distant landscape. Deoxazine purple with what? Bit of ultramarine blue perhaps. See what that does. It's too blue for the distant landscape. I've got a bit of yellow ochre. See what it does. I don't have a clue what mix. Not the mix I wanted at all. I didn't want a bright yellow mix. Right, I think it's not a dioxazine purple colour. I think it's ultramarine blue and yellow ochre in the distance. Ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, and a lot of white. That's it. A bit more ultramarine blue. Yeah. That's it. I'll put a bit of dioxazine purple in now. obviously my yellow ochre took it too far in the direction of yellow. Yeah, so adding a bit of dioxazine purple has given me that far distance line spot on. Perfect. So that was ultramarine blue, yellow ochre with white, and then just dioxazine purple, a tiny touch of it at the very end, just to give it that red. Because I've found that if I do use alizarin crimson and things to get the slight red tones that you can see in the distance, it overpowers it. Maybe there's something to be said for how much I'm actually using. Anyway, I've got it into my head that dioxazine purple might be a way forward for me, so I'm going to try and promote it in my head as much as I can. After all, I've paid for it, so that looks really good. That looks bang on. Yes, it might have looked exactly the same had I just used yellow ochre and ultramarine blue. But the dioxazine purple's in there anyway, so... You know what, the sky, although it's thinly applied, it might be worth just leaving it alone, forgetting about it. Something I find difficult to do. Right now the sun's coming down, it's illuminating some things in the distance which might be worth getting now. I'll try and keep my paint quite thin today. That's too acidic. The amount of paint I waste in trying to mix the colour I'm looking at, it's ridiculous. And that's not it for all my attempts. I'm going to wipe this palette because the mixing, the bad mixes, I can't see, if I could see any use for the paint I've mixed in the painting going forward, I'd keep it there, but I can't, so off it goes. Start again. Yeah, I'm pleased with how water's behaving with this. It might be because I have mixed it with this artisan painter's medium, but at the moment it's working better than the specially designed artisan thinner. It's doing alright. Alright, let me just get those shadows in. Bit of burnt umber, I think. Possibly deoxazine purple makes its appearance again, we'll see. Possibly too blue. That'll do. Okay, so whilst I'm happy with the sky, and I probably won't touch it, for the rest I'll say it's simply, at the moment, it's simply colour placement just to gauge where I'm at with things. It's work in progress on everything else, I'd say. In fact, I might just go with water, with the water for now, and then I'll use the painter's medium to thicken things up when I start applying heavier amounts of paint. The good thing about using the water as well is it remains in your brush. I think one of the problems that with using water mixable oils is that when you do clean your brush, and let's say you're not intending to use the water in your painting, when you do clean your brush and you forget to fully dry off your brush before you apply it, the next amount of paint, then it's in your painting. So it's not needing to worry about that too much, because I actually want it there. It's quite good. It saves time. It also means I don't have to ruin my brushes by constantly pushing them into the rag that I have. In fact, I'd say that the water that hangs around in your brush after cleaning is just about the right amount that you would want in your mixes. Right, let's just start getting some mass trees in here. Keep it really thin. Also try and put some variation of colour in there rather than just sticking in the one. Oh, where was that shadow? Alright, okay, I'll just place the shadow first of all, because it's something to build around. It goes in like a V shape. And then at other side of the shadow. May not show. So there's a shadow in a V shape there, and either side of the shadow we've got the light hitting the trees that are right next to it, and it's quite standout and poignant. So I'll stick that in now, so I don't forget that it was there. I don't think the light's gonna disappear because it's a relatively cloudless sky, so it should be fine. Need to be careful with cadmium yellow. It just does too much of a bright job on things. Cadmium yellow is the only real high intense value colour I have now, I think. I got rid of cadmium red, even though I do like cadmium red. I got rid of it. I wanted to reduce the size of the palette. I wanted to use a proper limited palette. Right, I'm going to stop this now, do a lot more, and then I'll start the film again. All I've done is mark some darks that are present in the landscape. Just here, I'm not going to paint this foreground hill, so it's just the shadows in there. I did the V already. A few little breaks in the trees here where shadows playing its part. So I'm just now placing the general colours of the trees that I can see around the shadows. Not knowing what I'm doing, not actually painted this kind of subject before. I'm just doing what I think. Big tree. I'm trying to just get the tones of the trees accurate. Because I think if you do get the tones right, it always ends up looking right. That's what I think. From watching other people mainly, rather than from experience. I won't claim that I've stumbled upon that. It's just watching other people on YouTube. Doesn't seem to matter how rough the work looks, if the colours are right and the tones are right, you don't doubt it, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. Right, let's get some red trees down there at the bottom. Possibly a bit too red. I can bring it down later. And then we're back into the muted greens. I think if I do end up putting all the colours in that I can see, I'll end up just creating nonsense on the painting panel. So I think I need to keep it a little bit more uniform and just stick with the same few colours and go for an impression rather than absolute accuracy. So just looking at it now, it's starting to look a little bit crazy. Start painting mass rather than getting tight with it and painting every single colour that's there. So in we go with mass, I think. The general colour rather than every colour. I must be careful not to paint over where the hill is. Let's just put a bit of burnt umber in there. So that's it, actually, it's a yellow. start blurring out the distance a little bit. I was too precise with the distance, and it never looks right. You need to blur it out and make it blend. Right, okay, now a bit of dioxazine purple, a bit of blue. Good. It'll look better as well when I define some of the foreground with branches. It'll make it look more like the foreground. In fact, what I'm going to do, because I'm happy with the way the distance is going, I'm going to do a little more, not much more with the distance. I'll just put the distant hill in, that's there, coming down here into the valley, and then I'll start building up the foreground with thicker paints, and that should give it the illusion of proximity. Close proximity. Get that hill coming down here. Light's catching it. That's that ridge coming down there. Right. Put some more light on the top of that hill there. Right, let's build up this foreground. So I'll try and not do it. I'll just blend in those shadows a bit. That's just want to go in again on the shadows. So I'm just using a bit of phthalo green, a bit of dioxazine purple, and a bit of ultramarine blue, and a bit of yellow ochre. Last say that, I've just changed everything and put a burnt sienna in it. It doesn't matter. Right, I must say now, that's the distance done. I must not touch that anymore. Well, actually, no. Some things will need doing on it, but if I concentrate too much on just changing what I'm happy with now, I'll lose what I've already got. So this foreground, and that's straight away the wrong colour. Start again. Yellow ochre and tiny bit of ultramarine blue. Needs a bit. That's it. Right. So I'm going to start using my artisan painter's medium now, just to thicken the paint up. Right, I'm not happy with this hill looking at it now. Change the hill. I've not got the shadows right. I think this might work better if I do put the paint in thick. I've often found that my shadows look better when I've gone in thick with the paint. So let me just put the base colour down, then I'll try and put the shadows into it. I don't even know how to mix the shadows that I'm seeing. I think I will go with the dioxazine purple. And what? Dioxazine purple. Let's just try the dioxazine purple. No, it's not deep enough. Ultramarine blue, I suppose. Not convinced by it. But the shadow is a light shadow, it's only subtle. This is a problem I have, getting the right colour for shadows. I either make them ridiculously dark, or if I go light like I am now, I produce something that's out of place. Looking at it, it's brown really. I'm just going to leave it. I'm not stressed about it, I'm just going to leave it. Right, burnt sienna into this green mix and a bit of burnt umber, dioxazine purple, just because I want to create unity. Some artist medium, it's looking too brown, yellow ochre and a bit of blue. The colour I've ended up with now bears no resemblance to the colours that I started with, so that's a failed mix, but it might come in useful with some white added to it later on, or even now. That's alright. Right, there's actually some heavy greens in the distance. The only real proper greens in the painting is in the foreground, and sometimes phthalo green just ruins everything. That's it. Looks a bit out of place, but it's there in reality, so I'm gonna stick with it. And it is only there on the very far tree, just down there. There are no more greens. The greens are here, which is out of the view of the painting. Put that green into my filled mix of brown, and I think I'll get the colours that are in the trees just ahead of that. Yes, I do. So that's worked out okay. The paint is not lost. It's good. Put a few shadows in. I think someone said to get your shadows, make sure that once you've mixed the dark, that's going to primarily serve as the shadow. Make sure that you mix it with some of the colour that the shadow is going to sit within. So, for example, if you were painting a shadow on grass, yes, you've got your shadow which looks nothing like the green of the grass, but yet mix it in with the green that's that represents the grass next to the shadow, the green that will be in the sun, or at least not in the shadow, and apparently you get something that looks more realistic. Obviously that's not me saying that, that's whoever it was, I can't remember who it was. But I've just done it there. I've just used the green of the tree in my shadow, and I think it does look quite accurate. I think the problem is you've got the sun coming in. I've just realised that people won't be able to see what's going on that side of the painting because of the shadow of the sun on the box. But let's get the stump down here. There's some frost actually on the hill coming down. I may not see it on the camera, but just there. I won't try to paint the frost because it's too light. But I think this mix of burnt umber with white is doing the job. A small ridge, a field breaker there. That's about right. Right, let's continue with this mass here. I'll reinforce the shadows. A lot of them I've now lost. But when I'm tidying this up, when I'm putting in the branches of the trees, I'll put the shadows back in. That have really acted as a good guide for me with this. Pleased I did put them in. I know you're supposed to put your darks and lights in, establish them early in your painting. For that very reason, it's something I never do. I seem to just work from the top down without any consideration of things like that. Just deal with the shadows as and when I encounter them. It's not really served me that well, to be honest. I think this is looking half decent. Just that tree there that doesn't really look, it's not set back, it looks wrong. It needs to be how to rectify it, I don't know. It looks wrong. Well, for a start, it's taking the wrong line down from the valley. It's a bit better. I think it needs to be blurred out a bit. That's a bit better. I think I gave it too much brightness. I'm going to just try and get this out of the shadow now. That's the reality of it now. The sun's showing it for what it really is, which isn't a disaster yet. I've done worse. I think we'll just put some. What I'll do is I'll stop the camera. When I come back, I'll establish some more trees here, thicker. Tinker with the background slightly, and then it should be done. So I think I'm ready to start putting some detail into this. Well, when I say detail, I mean simply tree branches and nothing else. I'm just putting a few horizon marks in. I did say I was going to tinker slightly with the background because it does need just a few things. I won't go too far. I will be careful not to do that. In fact, I'll leave it there. The far distance is just that blue. To my eye, it is just that blue line. It's probably not as dark as that. I could lighten it slightly, but I'm a bit worried about doing that. I'll just put some trees on that I've missed out on the top of the foreground hill. That's it. And there are a few actually running down. I'm using Rosemary and Co brushes as well. I decided to do away with the Winton ones and give them a try. They're very good. Right, that's it. I must not touch this anymore. Oh, apart from just to intensify the lights at the side of the shadows, off camera I just darkened the shadows that I'd lost. And now I'm going to just put the trees in, I think. I think that's going to be my focal point where the sun strikes the trees, where that triangle-like shadow is. Here as well, a few there. Just time for a few highlights before I start scratching in. If scratching in is what I do for the tree trunks, I haven't decided whether to use a rigger brush yet or scratch them in. The paint might be too thin for scratching in, to be honest. I might not get away with it. Right, I must leave it now. Right. I'll get the rigger brush out because I think I'm probably going to end up plumping for it. I need to be careful not to overdo this as well because I tend to. Let's just see how good scratching in is going to work. Try on this. I'll do a bit of both. Scratching in's working. The paint's not too thin as I thought it would be. Might turn out to be the best of options because I'm not great at using the rigger brush. It might be because my rigger brush is too thick. You can get thinner ones in this. Let's put a few tree trunks in. Looking at the tree trunks, the green. That's about right. Maybe a bit of yellow ochre and just bring that down. Let's see how right or wrong this looks. Well, for a start, it blends too much with the trees nearby. It needs to go white, I think. That's okay. I think I'll stick with the rigger brush. A few cutting through the shadows. Keep these ones straight because there's a lot of silver birch and things in the mass at the back. Thick ones at the base. Yeah. Possibly going too far. Could just do with one cutting through this shadow. It's quite fine. It's not there in real life, but I think it would just help the painting if I had something cutting through the dark shadow. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. A few in the distance here. Keep them lighter. Right, and some yellow ochre on these ones here, where the sun's striking. think I'll actually leave it there. So what I'll do is on my camera phone I'll do one of those, try and blend it with the true background and see how it looks.